Today let's talk about products. So a lot of times when you're doing multiplication, it's easier just to grab a calculator. But there are some situations where even without a calculator, you can find yourself finding a product a lot easier than you once thought. For example, if you had to multiply 49 times 53, this might not be a problem that's easily doable by maybe doing what you might have learned back in elementary school. Some people do what's called like a vertical multiplication, where you're multiplying the place values of the number and you're keeping track of them. And this algorithm, while it works for some people, it doesn't really give you a good understanding of what you're even doing in the problem. But what you can do is think about this problem as a product, but a little differently than maybe what you've seen before. Let me illustrate something here. What if I decided to say that 49 is 50 minus 1? Now that's true, right? 49 is 50 minus 1. And 53 I can write as a sum of 50 plus 3. So I'm still multiplying 49 times 53, but I'm using two numerical binomials. So this might seem more complicated, but how would we multiply these two? Well, there's a method known as maybe like the grid or the box method. And the way that we work this out is we rewrite our numbers as the sum or difference as before. So if I write 50 minus 1 on the top and 50 plus 3 on the side here, I can actually multiply out those terms. So 50 minus 1 times 50 plus 3 is the same thing as working out this grid here. And you can see that by using the distributive property. If I were to use the distributive property, multiplying a binomial times a binomial, I'll show you in these colors here, you would multiply the 50 times the 50 and the 50 times the 3. Similarly, you would multiply -1 times 50 and -1 times 3 and find the sum. So I'm going to do the same thing, but in my little box here. 50 times 50 is 2,500. And the reason why that's pretty easy to do, even in your head, is 5 times 5 is 25, and a 10 times a 10 makes 100, so 25 hundredths. 50 times this -1 makes -50. 50 times this +3 makes 150. And then 3 times -1 is -3. And then the product, the final product that we're looking for, is the sum of all these terms in the grid here, or the box. So if I were to line this up vertically to help me with place value, you could think of this as 2,500 plus 1,500, subtracting 50, and you are subtracting a 3. So you can subtract the 50 from the 50. So 50 minus 50 is gone. And you have 2,600 minus 3. Let me just write that out for myself. 2,600, but then you have to take away 3. So this would be 2,597. So even though some people might prefer what they've seen before in previous classes like this, like elementary school or middle school, this method might be more useful to you because it kind of breaks the product into easier to digest or easier to multiply pieces.